Hello everyone, sorry for the wait, but we are here and I want to introduce in person our very first guest here in the Hue living room on the couch, Sana Mahboob, and thank you so much, Sana, for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
And you got a little taste of some of the technical issues that go around behind the scenes. But hey, we're here, and I want to open up the door to invite Rana and Linda.
There is feedback.
I know there is feedback a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But you're fine. We're not.
Okay.
Hopefully we do have some technical people working right now, but can we live with this? Rana's shaking her head.
We'll make it work.
I find that sometimes if you try muting yourselves and see if we get feedback still.
No one's talking.
No. Still get the feedback here. Oh, unmute yourselves.
Well, we'll see how long this goes. All right. So I want to introduce Sana, and this month is about new beginnings, but you are brand new, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. I'm just going to speak loud, and that's going to be my own strategy to drown my own feedback out. So that's, if you're like, why is Sana screaming? That's why, to drown my own voice out. So my name is Sana Mahboob, born and partially raised in Pakistan. My family, my tiny little family and I, my brother, my parents, and I moved to Winnipeg when I was in the 90s. So Winnipeg has been home since then. We did move back to Pakistan because we thought that this was the end of our new beginning in Canada, but we migrated right back to Winnipeg and started another new beginning. And my brother, we started university, and then our career started right here. So that's a little bit about myself.
Yourself. And then you do have a pretty incredible job.
I do have the pleasure of being a public servant. So I work for the Government of Canada, for Prairies Economic Development Canada. It's really been a privilege, and I don't mean this in a cliche or a cheesy way. It really has been a privilege to serve the community as a public servant, especially during COVID. Part of the Prairies Can's mandate is to fund money. It's the feedback that's throwing me off.
I know.
Is to fund businesses and boost the economy in the West. So especially during the pandemic, where businesses were struggling to, put food, to keep their lights on, put food on their table, keep their staff employed. That's where we were able to work with them and fund certain businesses. Not certain businesses, a lot of businesses. So that is my day job. I can hear myself even more now.
We do have sound, so Logan is going to
time out.
Get rid of the feedback. Yay!
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun,
Oh!
dun.
Yay, it worked.
Oh,
Way better.
Okay, all right. Now we just need to adjust the audio a little bit in the
Yes.
studio, but hey, thank you to Graham, Mike, Logan behind the scenes that have managed now to fix the problem. I won't make you do this all again.
no, that's okay. Yeah, exactly. You guys get the gist. That's who I am.
Yeah, that's who you are. That's how she rolls. But you know what's really interesting too? Not only your background, but talking about new beginnings and how many times you start yourself over. And let's start the conversation about starting or reinventing yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And how hard is that? Or is it hard?
I love this question. I really actually, like, honestly had to pause and reflect, because how often do we, really have the opportunity to pause and reflect? So, I feel like this question can go so many different ways, right? A new beginning for me was different as a child moving to Canada. Then a new beginning became different as a student embarking on an academic career, to my first job, to, like, just certain milestones in life feel like a new beginning, but the new beginning could be different for, a parent having their firstborn, or someone possibly going through a bad breakup, or starting a new business. So new beginnings are just, we're surrounded by them, and I'm really, really excited that is our topic of conversation today.
Well, and I think especially coming out of what we've been living in the last couple of years, and let's get Linda and Rana to kind of comment too. What does new beginnings mean to you, Linda?
Okay. Great question. I love this.
And great earrings, by the way.
Oh, thank you. What does reinvention? I think it's something that we can do at any moment of our lives. We can choose to reinvent ourselves. It's really a decision. It's a decision that we make, that we want to be different than how we've been. One of the ways that I work with clients, so I'm a business coach, and I have clients who are in business, creatives, and I'm helping them with all sorts of mindset hurdles and creating goals and looking to the future. And it's often around reinvention. Often they come to me when they have hit a point where they can't move forward. They're just stuck. They're like, I've tried all the things, I've read all the books, I can't move forward. And so we go through a process together of reinvention, and often that can be as simple as telling themselves, I'm the type of person who gets things done. Just little thought processes that, we replace with the old thoughts. The old thoughts can be like, I never finish things, I try things and I don't, I get halfway and I give up, or, things never work out for me. Those kind of negative thought patterns we replace with thoughts that are very simple, but they take practice, and they are things like, yeah, I'm the type of person who, get stuff done. I'm the type of person who does not give up. I'm the type of person who, sets a goal and finishes it. And that is the reinvention that they are working towards. And, we do all sorts of steps along the way. But I think it really is a decision. It's a decision that you often come to when you're sick and tired of yourself making the same old choices over and over again, kind of spinning your wheels, and you just hit a point where you're like, nope, done. I can't do this anymore. There's got to be a better way. So yeah, it's an exciting time, and usually our biggest challenge is not ourselves, although it can be. It's usually other people's perception of us when we try and change and reinvent ourselves, and everyone's like, hang on, no. Stay the same. Keep doing what you've been doing. Doesn't matter if you're miserable. Like, we just want you to stay the same. So our biggest challenge can sometimes be the people around us.
That's interesting. Have you had that? No, you're fine. You're good.
Yeah, interesting. I love Linda's perspective, because as she's speaking, I'm kind of putting myself in those situations. I'm sure we've all been pigeonholed, one way or another in our lives. I'm confident that may have been the case at a previous job. I've been very, very fortunate to have a family that's incredibly supportive, to have a network around me that's incredibly supportive. So I feel like that part I'm good, but it might be that self battle. So the other way around, like I might be my own problem at times on like, do I want to get out of this comfort zone? Oh, it took me so long to get here and get comfortable. What's the next step? But that just comes with growth, right? Or growth comes with that, getting out of that comfort zone and challenging yourself. So yeah, but you're absolutely right, because I can think of numerous examples where, yeah, I do feel like the people around certain people could be the problem.
Yeah. And then doesn't that get into, right, the negative people, right? The people that want to bring you down. And, you know, and that's another part, right? To try and, you know, if you're reinventing yourself, is to break away too as well. But for you, Rana, what does go ahead.
One of my favorite things about that is, you know, with if people are, you know, critical or negative, one of my favorite things that I like to think is people are allowed to be wrong about me. They could be wrong about me. I can live with that. They can be wrong. Let them have their own thoughts and feelings.
Well, no, that's a good way of looking at things too as well. Well, let's see what Rana. What about you? New beginnings.
Yeah, you know, I had a little different perspective from my end. You know, I think that just as human beings, life is about growth. Like we are meant to constantly evolve and grow and learn from experiences and then take the next step. You know, so it's not life without constant change. It's not life without constant ups and downs. And I think, you know, there's so many social constructs in regards to that, you know, and I think, you know, in previous lives, and I think for my parents' generation, people just got one job and they did what they did until the end of time. And that's all they knew. It didn't matter if their passions were being fulfilled or, you know, their heart's desires were being met. They were just there to survive and make it work for their families and sacrifice whatever they could. But I think that, you know, it's a generational shift. It's a generational thing where, you know, we are more willing to have different challenges, you know, bring into our lives different challenges and make different decisions. But at the end of the day, you know, I think that this whole idea that we can't continuously change, that we can't continuously fail and then get up again, you know, these are very much Western social constructs in my world. I think that you know, there's many places in the world where you would just be able to continue on and do what you do, right? And there's no judgment from other people, or you just I'm not saying there wouldn't be full judgment, but I'm just saying we're strong enough to kind of overcome all the negativity and everything else and then go to the next step. So I think it's more of a personal thing. I think we live in a world where people expect authenticity. And I think that's the only way you can present yourself as an authentic woman or person or whatever else is to continuously self-reflect on what's working for you and what's not working for you. But that's not to say that, like, I'm very much affected by negative comments, right? Like it bugs me. And I think definitely Linda's comment, I'll be keeping that in my head. For sure. But at the same time, you know, do those comments paralyze you so you're not going to move, or is it going to be more of a motivation to keep moving forward, right? Because change is constant. Like you know, we live in a world, look at the last 3 years. Nobody could have imagined that we would have to pivot the way that we did, whether it was in our businesses, our family lives, or, you know, our relationships with children and family, everything changed. And I think if there was ever a time to you know, really grasp onto that and, you know, propel it into a very normal thing that we do now, it'd be great, because things aren't going to always be the same. Things are going to be very challenging. And, you know, we're really bound by a lot of, you know, outside forces, but what we can control is our own self-reflection. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that you have to love your job. It means that you can come home and find that passion that's going to fulfill that part of your heart. And it doesn't mean, like, like nobody is ever going to have every part of their life fulfilled. I think it's a very, very, long shot that happens, but I think we can fill holes in some places. If one thing's not working, maybe we can find something else to fill it. But I just see it more as a journey than anything else. But the fear of failure is real life. Fear of failure is real life. I think our self-talk, like Linda said, is very damaging, and I think we grew up in a world. I think before we even got on, I was like talking about my hair and my makeup, and I wouldn't say that to Sana, and I wouldn't say it to Linda, and I wouldn't say that to Trace, right? But you'd say it to yourself. So I think there's just a lot of different components to the whole conversation. But starting new is good. Sometimes it's good. It's hard. It's very hard. But I think ultimately it's more positive than negative if you can push through that journey where it's so devastatingly hard and you feel that sense of loss because something's changing. But yeah, that's where my head's at when it comes to this conversation.
Oh, well, like listening to everybody, and just because you're here in person, and this is what the whole conversation is, okay. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but I think right now, I just feel a kind of like a kind of feeling just about how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to support this group, or how we're supposed to look at these things, and how politically correct, what are the proper things, and to say and do, and even doing a show like this, what is safe to talk about that's not going to upset someone else. And I mean, we just kind of relate it back to everyday life. Your head just gets overwhelmed, and and then that can spill in obviously to mental health and wellness. But Sana, like, I mean, okay, you were just at the Winnipeg Women's Conference talking to all of these women, and it's just like, all these things bombarding your brains.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a kind of a cool privileged position to be in, right? So when we initially went into the pandemic, it was only going to be a couple of weeks, guys. We got this, no big deal, hang tight, go, get some groceries. A year goes by, 2 years go by, and people are just, that's the new beginning of the pandemic life, right? So it might be a little bit of the mindset. It is overwhelming to kind of get back into the norm, but like little things like, oh yes, I have to take aside a little extra time to commute somewhere, or I have to, maybe I have to be a little sensitive and not make a comment about one thing because God knows what someone has gone through during the last few years, or just in general in their life. So I think I don't know if this is me being a product of my upbringing or my community work, but I always feel like I'm dotting my I's and I'm crossing my T's and I'm being cautious and careful. But that's also more so coming from the heart. Like I don't want to offend anybody, right? Like I don't like being offended. I'm sure I've been offended, but I don't want to have to, return that favor. So it is, but I think that's going to be like an ongoing constant battle. Even, year 4 out of this pandemic, hopefully, there's always going to be something. And I can't recall who made the comment, but, you're constantly, no one likes negative comments, but you really just cannot please everybody. So mistakes are going to happen, and I think we all have to give each other that space to make the mistakes, whether it's allowing for technical difficulties before the beginning of a program or, whatever it may be. We just have to be mindful, I think, and just be a little, as much as we're cautious and careful about ourselves and what we may say and what we may not want to say. I think it'd be nice to just allow people space to kind of come on their own and make their mistakes and grow and learn from it.
Yeah, and just be understanding about it. I don't know, Linda, do you feel?
Oh, there's so much here.
I know.
I don't know where to jump in. Well, I think Sana, you were saying you can't please everyone, and if you are, as Rana said, living an authentic life, you're going to have views that you feel passionate about, and certainly a lot of people are going to disagree with them, but that's, that's okay. People aren't going to like the fact that I'm, a feminist and pro LGBTQ plus, and trans lives matter, and anti-racist matters. Like, a lot of that stuff, people are going to be like, they don't want to hear that. But does that mean that I then hold back because I'm afraid to offend? No, like we were saying about this before the program started. Women, I think, need to challenge themselves to take up space and speak louder, and at the risk of offending. There's, instead of holding back, which we were taught as we grew up, we were socialized, make sure everyone's supported, be nice, don't, certainly include everyone, don't ruffle feathers, be sweet, be kind to everyone. Well, that's lovely, but if you've got a political agenda, or if you have a a dream you're trying to manifest, that's not the best advice. It's not the best way to get things done. Some of us do have to be shit disturbers. Some of us have to rock the boat. Rana, I know you like to rock your boats every now and then.
More often than not.
And I love people who do that. So you talk next, because you always have.
You know what though? So, and I apologize for interrupting you. The thought came into my mind. For me, like, and how long have we been on the show? And I always feel like I'm the one who's kind of like, just being the a-hole, excuse my language, and just being like, I don't think so. But the truth of the matter is that is something that I've had to teach myself. I've had to teach myself that it's okay to have a position based on values that I think should be reflected in this world. I think that we should be able to have very open conversations about racialized issues. We should be having open conversations about intersectional racism, systemic issues, indigenous issues, any issue that has somehow affected and really, like cancer, has invaded our society, and we're kind of living in it. Because it's not really for us. I mean, look, I'm 44. I'm probably dead in like 30 years. At the end of the day, there's people coming behind us I would hope that we've created a world that it is norm not to be those things. It is normal not to be racist. It is normal not to be sexist or ageist or, homophobic, or all these, values that somehow trickle down into our world. And those are the issues where I speak passionately about, because I'm not trying to fill a role. I'm just speaking my truth. I'm just speaking my truth, and going back to just being as authentic as you can, as scary as that is, it's also very empowering, because it is very scary, because every time you open your mouth, there's going to be somebody at you. But it's also very empowering, because I know that when I put my head on the pillow at night, I haven't taken a step that would cause intentional harm to another group of people or another human being. And perhaps they needed someone, or I needed to say those words. So I love it. I think it's a beautiful conversation, and it should be had. And that's why the Hue, what started as the Hue crew, that is now, transformed into the Hue living room. How many conversations have we had that everyone else was too afraid to have? And that's why it's so powerful, and that's why it's so incredible to have people who are like-minded, especially strong women, especially strong intersectional women, to come out and speak truth, and to speak, literally truth to power at all times, because that's how we change. That's how things shift, because people will make you afraid. They'll try to scare you out of doing anything.
So I'm going to
you know?
piggyback on this right over here because I feel like my answer was very PC, and then Linda's like, F this, and Rana's like, F that. If I had a table, I'd flip it, right? So make no mistake. Make no mistake. I absolutely, do not mean dot your I's, cross your T's if the world is coming at you like a dog with a bone. I wake up every day choosing violence. That is my knee-jerk reaction, is to fight versus flight. Like, that is my absolute reality, and I've had to temper myself over the years as I've matured. Now in my 30s, it's taken a lot of work to recognize that communication is a key to a lot of things, right? So bad communication will end a lot of good things. Good communication will build a bridge between a lot of negative things and have a potential to turn it into positive. So I repeat, I wake up every day choosing violence, and I have to actively work on being a calm, collected person. And I've curated a world around me where it supports that behavior. So, and I've built a platform where I can use it to promote whatever my agenda is, whether it's, being anti-racist, or whether it's being, pro-feminism, or whether it's being, diversity, inclusion, adversity, pro about it. So it takes a lot of work. And you spoke about the Winnipeg Women's Conference. My goodness, like, what an amazing place to be. And having the honor of being there, speaking and connecting with women. I remember at one point there was a question, I was like, it'll be okay, right? And I was like, I don't mean it as a blanket statement, like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. Like, no, it takes a lot of work to get there. And this is true for regardless of where you are in your life, in your career, in your age. It takes a lot of work to get to it. And it's only going to get better should you learn from it, right? So I just wanted to piggyback on what these lovely ladies were saying. And,
I love
and
it.
close with that.
I love it. Sana, can you talk about, sorry, can I just jump in? Can you talk about how that experience, like, how do you, like, when you're, you did mention it's a privilege to be asked to speak at these various events, and I've been watching, and I love the way that you utilize your platform because it's incredibly empowering, but like, what's your thought process when you're going onto a stage like the women's conference? Like, what were you thinking, okay, like, I have to, these are the points that I have to hit, or were you, I want to send this message, and if so, what was that message that you wanted to deliver that day? Like, because I wasn't there, but I really wish I was. I would have loved to have heard you.
And she had to fill 20 minutes too as well.
I was like, blah, 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 blah. No. No, that's a good question. So I find preparation is key for me. So if I have to, but circumstances, right? So if I have to stand at a podium and give a 20-minute speech, or 5-minute speech, or 1-minute speech, I will prepare. This is where my dotting my I's, crossing my T's comes in, right? Like, I will, but this also goes back to how I was as a student. Like, I would just prepare, present, right? So it depends on the audience and the circumstance. So going into speech mode, I will practice, and I'll put together a speech straight from the heart, so I can relate to it, I can hit the points, and I will prepare so I also prefer kind of like looking up at the audience versus constantly looking down, right? But that's just what I prefer. But for that conference, I was nervous because I was like, I looked at, I know what our community is capable of. I know there are powerful, impactful women right here. Look at my circle right here, right? I know what this community is capable of. And then I was kind of peeking through the attendee list, and I was like, what can I possibly share with this group of superhero women that they don't already know, right? So I knew that I was nervous because I wanted the audience to get the most out of it. So I did not over prepare. I think the preparation was just kind of calming myself and going with the flow of the conversation. Because I think if I over prepared, I'd probably you could probably see it, right? They'd be like, what is she thinking about? She's blanked out, because then I'm going to be thinking about my notes. So I just it was just really easy, and the audience was so gracious. Our moderator was amazing. The person interviewing you, that matters a lot. Like, they just make you feel comfortable, and you just vibe off of the other panelists and the audience that were there. So did not super prepare except for just calming my nerves. And like, I couldn't sleep the night before because I was like, what can I possibly share with this group? So yeah, it just depended on the audience, and I sincerely hope that the audience got something out of it, even a nugget of information that was beneficial for them. So if you hear something, Rana, let me know.
No, I just wanted to really what I was trying to, and I love it, and I appreciate your honesty in that. So just private life. So me and Sana we're now soul sisters. We've decided in life that we're going to be soul sisters.
Accurate.
But one thing I picked up from you right away was how effective your communication is. And you kind of hit on that before, and you've also mentioned, how important that skill is to be able to effectively communicate. And I think that I really was just kind of wanting, like, that's really what I was talking about, was that you, even in that moment, you were such an effective communicator, not because you sat there with notes, but because you had trained yourself in a way that, no matter what you said in the moment, without even thinking about it, it was going to come out beautifully and powerfully and empowering. And I just wanted to, shout out to you, because I do have watched you for a while, and I think you're an amazing communicator.
Well,
you.
and that's so important. So thinking about that, and maybe Linda, I'll get you to chime in, and then Sana. So we're sitting here, and yes, you're talking about giving your speech, and you're talking to women, and I know that I've had the experience too, and it is easy in a way to talk to other women. I find it really hard talking to men. And we're being open here, like, even talking to my husband Kevin, I can sit here and I can talk, and we can talk about politics, and we can talk about feminism, and I've had these wonderful conversations, but when I come to actually having a conversation with him, it's like that's what
I hope Kevin's not listening right now.
I know, like, oh my God, Rana said that. Oh God, I got to remember what Linda said. Oh my God, Sana's saying all this. I don't know. What is it?
Well, we're socialized very differently. Like that, I mean, that is, we're socialized completely differently. So we really are coming at it from a very different perspective. And, I mean, I'll put it, my work right now, I mean, my clients are women. Most of the networking that I do is with women, and I love it. Last night, this is my ideal. So there was a networking event at Gravity Lingerie. Do you know the one on Stafford?
Oh my goodness, they're beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful. So this is my idea of women in business networking. I showed up there. It was 5:00. There was champagne all ready to go, beautiful food, and all of us were either trying on bras or talking about business. This to me is beautiful. And to me, I was actually writing about this. I was writing an email to my list tonight, and we don't have to conduct ourselves anymore like we, business that used to get conducted on the golf courses and in the boardrooms where women were really not welcome. We are being able to reinvent business and reinvent women in the workforce and in the economy in a way that speaks to us, that makes sense to us, that prioritizes things that we value. And I think that's very exciting. I think that we're really at a very pivotal moment in history. I think, may you live in interesting times. I think we are living in a fascinating time of life. It's hard and it's beautiful. But we really have this opportunity to reinvent communication, reinvent our business style, reinvent what we take to the politicians to say, this is important to us. And
Okay.
whether that's like finding a good bra, or it's like, it's daycare for sure. We need daycare for our kids so that women can re-enter the workforce. I think there's still 500,000 women in Canada that left the workforce that did not come back from the pandemic. And we need those women's skills and talents and abilities back in the workforce, but we need childcare.
And that's
Right?
interesting. 500,000 women. How can we they need help, not even just a job, but just they need help just being,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
scary.
There's so many thoughts swirling in my head. So, men.
Men, yeah.
No, I mean it in a the reality of when you speak to your husband, like his world is completely different from your world, right? So context that you may have, he's just like, I don't, from the top, Tracy, from the top. Start from the top, give me all the context and go, right? And he's just eating and you're like da 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 talking. So
yeah.
it may seem like you're talking at him versus having a conversation. So I think relationships are totally like, that's probably like an entirely different segment because
I know. I don't know what he thinks. I think we're plotting to take over the government or something. And
you may want to have him join the show
think so.
actually, like
think so.
interview.
Call him in here.
I know.
man.
He's overheard some of our conversations and he's going, "What are you talking about?" And it's just like, it's normal.
You're like, tune in to find out.
yeah, I know.
No, I think some of us may have grown up in kind of like a man's world, right? But so that may again impact the way we approach them. But at the same time, I grew up with an older brother who, kind of like him and I have this. I would never say this to his face. Of course, he's gonna watch. But my brother is incredible, and he's like the typical big brother where he's there when you need him. My father, incredible. There are not enough words to describe. I know I speak about communications and being an effective communicator. I don't have enough communication skills to describe what an impeccable man my father is or what a father he is. I know Rana's relationship with her father was just heartwarming, right? So what kind of men she grew up around. I know what kind of men I grew up around. So you begin to understand, most of these men, like, what to expect from a man. I don't mean from like a chivalrous perspective. I mean from like a respect perspective. And also like, frankly, so in my undergrad, I used to work at Grafton and Company, which was like this like high-end men's suit store. And at that time, I learned, and before that, speaking of bras, I worked at La Senza. So that's what my undergrad consisted of. And, I saw women in retail and I saw men in retail. And I mean this in a respectful way to the men that are watching. Guys are so simple. Like they're just so black and white. They're just so walk in, I want a suit, the end. This is a very simplified example, and may not work in boardrooms, but this is a very simplified example of women walk in, and I'm one of them, like underwear flying all over and like, bras flying all over and like, no, I look fat in this, but actually you look impeccable. A man will never say I look fat in this suit. Like, so I think there's a bit of a psychology in men and women and how we approach them. So, but I mean, as far as relationships are concerned, I'm going to tune in to I'm going to tune into all the episodes, but I'm tuning in to when you have Kevin here on the couch, because that'll be really, how do you, manage to have a phenomenal relationship, two children who are doing well, maintaining a great relationship. I think there's a lot more to be, maybe like, you don't need everyday consistent communication. Maybe that's the key.
True. I mean, yeah, when we've known each other for way too long, so it's almost like through osmosis we know. But yeah, and I don't know. And Linda, you're right. It's sort of like the era that you've grown up in, and we. But then if we take it all back to what we're talking about, new beginnings, how do we change? You know, it's
Could
hard.
you, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about like, if I want something from my brother, you know, I mean, he has his life, he's married and he's got his own world. And my, you know, father, of course, he's in his retired years and but make no mistake, right? I tell my dad I want something, he's like there at the drop of the dime, right? With my brother, I would have to communicate differently to him and be like, this is a context, this is what I need. And he'll be like, do it yourself, because it's so petty, right? And I'm like the other day I asked him to open a jar because my hands were slippery, and I don't mean this like I'm powerful, but my hands were slippery, and he just like looked at me like, you're better than this, you can open your own jar. And I'm like, you're right, but in this moment I really just need you to open this freaking jar because my hands are wet from, you know, doing other things, cooking. So
But you're right.
dare I say, just it may come down to communication and allowing that space, because and meeting people where they are, possibly, because there are times, and if we want to use like a work example, there are times where in my former life I had a manager who I just did not jive with. Like I did not jive with, and I couldn't understand why. You know, like my managers are Grafton, suits, retail, men, totally fine. In, you know, career, I had female management, totally fine. So it was actually the first time probably in my life for career where I was like, what is this person's problem? Like, it's not me. I've never had this problem. In this case, it wasn't me, but whatever. But you know, I think there probably is time and space for me to pause. And actually, that's what I did do. I had to pause and kind of just meet him where he was. I had to observe, kind of like, you know, like a hunter approaching its prey. Like I had to observe and watch him in his natural surroundings. I just happened to know his wife, and I watched how he, you know, approached and treated his own wife. So I was like, oh, if he treats her like that, then I can't expect much professionalism towards myself, right? So a lot of times it's not you, it's probably the other person, but it doesn't hurt to just pause and perhaps self-reflect, because I'm sure for that one example where it wasn't me, there's been probably countless examples where I probably was the problem, and you know, I had to pause and reflect to deal with it and communicate around it.
Well, I mean, that's self-awareness too, isn't it? Too, to kind of be aware of what you're doing too as well. I don't know. Yeah, Rana?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I'm with the, I don't know, I'm the kind of, I'm just always going to assume the problem lies within everybody else. I'm kidding. No, I think, you know, Sana's right. Like you meet people where they're at, you know, and some people legitimately just don't have capacity. They just don't have the skills or the thought process or the lens, you know, and I talk about this often. We function and we kind of maneuver through the world based on our own life experiences and the lens through which we view the world based on our own experiences. And sometimes people just can't mesh. It's just not something that they can understand. And you know, I go back, and every single time on this show that I've said, you know, the only way to approach these things is taking an intersectional approach. That's why I'm constantly saying that. It's because, you know, once we kind of get a grasp on that approach, that lens, everything will start to make sense, right? Because not everything can be viewed through the current structures. It just doesn't work. It's not working for a lot of people. So, and where it may have worked in the past, it's just not going to work anymore. But yeah, you meet people where they're at, and it goes for everything. It goes to politics, it goes to law, it goes to everything else, you know. So
it goes to the Academy Awards.
Hey, I wasn't going to say.
I was wondering who was going to bring that up.
I am.
I mean, the Grammys were boring compared to the Academy Awards.
Nobody got slapped.
Yeah, I know.
No, but you know what? It made me think of what you were saying, Rana, because you know, watching that interaction, that communication or lack thereof that was on the stage, and of course the outpouring that happened the next day. One of the things that I was reminded of by several people was to be quiet and let Black women speak on this issue. Even though, I mean, I've got all my opinions, it was a very good reminder to not look at it from a black and white, from my experience, right? Like, as you were saying, Rana, like my experience, my little world that's going, oh, violence is wrong, like never violence. And, but holding that in and then listening to it from a view of a black woman, a black woman's hair, race, how that was playing out, it was really good advice. And sometimes the best communication is knowing when your opinion does not matter. And I think as a white woman, I've been taught that my opinion matters all the time. And to be, reminded, this isn't for you to comment on right now. It was very, very good, good message. So yes.
Oh, that's an amazing message. That's a really, that's awesome.
Wow.
And it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. You speak to, you speak in places where you need to be heard.
Yeah.
Right. So, like we were talking about, and I was telling you about that, I never jump into committees. I don't, and there's been a list of things that have happened throughout the years. And, I've read about it in the news, and I kind of was like, oh, okay, well, someone's going to jump in and speak to it. And like I told you, there was that, the code of conduct for taxi drivers, which, I mean, Sana and me were talking about that the other day. Like I'm enraged, like I'm legitimately very upset about this. So I just signed up, and I've never have before. And I just signed up this morning, and I was like, no, man, like I'm going to go, I need to go and speak to this. And, but from me, not only am I speaking to it as a BIPOC woman, but I'm also speaking to it from a perspective of, bridge building. We need these communities to start building bridges, and you can't do that if one group of people refuse to take accountability for actions. Like it doesn't work. So just like you're saying, sometimes there's places where we have to jump in. Sometimes there's places where we're really uncomfortable, but we have to, we must step in and kind of have those conversations. But that whole thing, I had to kind of look away with the Will Smith and Chris Rock thing. I don't know why I just had to look away. I couldn't engage in it. I couldn't watch all the news about it. I just had to check out, And Sana, you're nodding your head, so I think you probably felt what I was feeling.
Oh, totally. That was on a Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was out celebrating my birthday. I couldn't care less about celebrity nonsense or really anyone's nonsense. I was out celebrating me. So, and it wasn't until like the end of my birthday where people like phones were kind of going off and they're like, what? And I was like, but have you seen my balloons? Because I'm obsessed with balloons. It's my day. So after midnight, you guys can talk about other people. I didn't say that. But I just had to drown that out because there is so much to this world other than, celebrity drama.
No, that's true. And it's over with. Like I said, it's hopefully whatever it is happens, but, it'll be on to the next thing. I just want to quickly, though, say happy Ramadan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And amazing. I know that Rana, you've kind of given a tutorial of, for us, but, Sana was saying the same thing. So good on you, ladies. And I feel really bad because it's now almost 8 and 8 o'clock, and that means dinner. I guess.
We're out.
Yeah, you guys need to have a feast. Yes. So. Thank you so much, Linda, for joining us tonight, and Rana, really appreciate it. And hey, if you haven't already, you can go online to lenardtaylor.com and do some spring shopping. Thank you, Lenard. He's in Toronto and I think Chicago for a big fashion week. And it's great that everybody's back in person. So wonderful. And if you go through in your first time, you go to the cash, go I Like You 20, and you get 20% off. So there you go.
Woohoo.
Perfection.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Belated.
Thank you. Now that I have to be outside of my pajamas, I might have to
Yes.
wardrobe up for sure.
Oh, and thank you so much to you, Sana, for being my first guest. It's
Ah.
been wonderful.
The
So
pleasure
nice.
is 1,000% mine. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Everybody out there, thanks for joining us in the Hue Living Room.
All right.
We'll see you
Okay, have a
next
good night, you
time.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Sana. Talk to you later.
Bye.